So now we're back to Godot docs, getting started our first 2D game, creating the player scene. All right. So with the project settings in place, we can start working on the player controlled character. All right. So because we just set it up in the last video, we can start making stuff. All right. So the first scene will define the player object. One of the benefits of creating a separate player scene is that we can test it separately even before we've created other parts of the game. Yeah, so it's just like making a part or something. Like let's say we're making like a puppet show, right? We can imagine puppet shows, right? So when we're making the player object, we're making the individual puppet, right? Pretty easy. Or no. Actually, I think the player object is this the template for other players actually? Anyway, whatever. Let's go back to it. Player scene that we can test it separately. We did that. Right. So node structure. To begin, we need to choose a root node for the player object. As a general rule, the scene's root node should reflect the object's desired functionality. What the object is. What? The scene's root node should reflect the object's desired functionality. Huh? What the object is, huh? Are they saying that it needs to be what it needs to be? I don't know what they're saying there. All right. So we're going to click the other node button and then add a Area2D node to the scene. All right. So let's do that with a Control A, and then we're going to look for Area2D. So Control A, Area2D right there. Boom, enter. All right, so we got that there. We've got a little warning, but they're going to talk about that. So let's go over there. All right, so yeah, we did that. When we add the Area2D node, Godot will display the following warning icon next to it in the scene tree. So we saw that. And node configuration warning. This node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. Consider adding a collision shape 2D or collision polygon 2D as a child to define its shape. And we're going to do this, right? So this warning tells us that the Area2D node requires a shape to detect collisions or overlaps, all right? So we can ignore the warning temporarily because we will first set up the player's visuals using an animated sprite. Okay, so we're going to put the sprite on before we actually deal with the collision problem. And once the visuals are ready, we will add a collision shape as the child node, as a child node. And this will allow us to accurately size and position the shape based on the sprite's appearance. Yeah. So we're going to have the sprite up first so that we can measure the collision shape using it. You'll see in a second. I'll show. It's real cut and dry. It makes a lot of sense. All right. So with Area2D, we can detect objects that overlap or run into the player. Okay. We're going to change the node's name to player by double clicking on it. All right. So let's do that first. Let's come over here, double click on Area2D, and let's just call it player. Boom. Enter. Was it lowercase or uppercase? No, uppercase. Let's do it again. Double click, capital player. Player. There we go. All right. So let's go to the next part. Now that we've set the scene's root node, we can add additional nodes to give it more functionality. Okay. So before we add any children to the player node, we want to make sure we don't accidentally move or resize them by clicking on them. We're going to select the node and click the icon to the right of the lock. Its tooltip says groups the selected node with its children, and this causes the parent to be selected when any child node is clicked in 2D and 3D view. Okay, so we're going to select the player node, and then over here under this unsaved thing, we're going to come over to this thing, this weird looking thing next to the lock. All right, so let's do that real quick. We've got player already selected. Come over here, and there it is right there. Boom. And it says ungroup selected node, and then I guess it was group first. All right, so let's come back over here. All right, So that's the thing. We did that, and now let's save the scene. All right, so we're gonna, just press Control S. Save the scene with Control S. Let's save it as player dot what's it called? Text scene. There we go. And then let's go to the next part. So now that we've done that, we've got a note. For this project, we're going to be following Godot naming conventions. We've already went through this in other videos. All right, so sprite animation. We're going to click on the player node and add control. We're going to click on the player node and add a child node, Animated Sprite 2D. All right, so let's do that real quick. Let's do player node, already selected, Control A, and then node 2D. Node 2D is right up here, so we can just select that. It's in the same branch of the tree or something like that. All right, so we did that. No, what? Okay, never mind. Back up. Animated Sprite 2D. That's what we got to do. Undo. Do this. Control A. Animated Sprite 2D. Let's go find that. Animated Sprite 2D right there. Create it. All right. So now we got that. So let's come back over here and let's see what's next. The Animated Sprite 2D will handle the appearance and animations for our player. Notice that there's a warning symbol next to the node. There is. All right. An Animated Sprite 2D requires a sprites frames resource, which is a list of the animations it can display. Okay. To create one, we're going to find the sprite frames property under the animation tab. Sprite frames property. Oh, over here. Okay, so animated sprite frames like that. In the inspector, and click empty new sprite frames. So this to this. All right, cool. We can do that. So it's over here. Sprite 2D, animation, right? Sprite frames, new sprite frame. Boom. All right. So let's go back to it. So we did that. Let's go to the next thing. So we're going to click on the sprite frames we just created to open the sprite frames panel. Let's do it. Sprite frames we just created. Click this. Yes. All right. There it is. What do we got? Oh, we did that. On the left side is a list of animations. We're going to click the default one and rename it to walk. Then we'll click the add animation button to create a second animation named up. So we're going to have walk and up. Let's do that. So default, double click. Nope, that wasn't good. Default single click, and then walk, and then add, and then we'll make this one up. There we go. We got up and walk. So let's do this. Let's go back here. All right. So we're going to find the player images in the file system tab, and they're in the art folder we unzipped earlier. True. We're going to drag the two images for each animation named player gray walk 1 of 2 and player gray walk 2 of 2 into the animation frame side of the panel for the corresponding animation. Okay. So we're going to drag these two into this thing. All right, let's do that. So we'll come over here, art right here. Player gray walk. So we're going to get this one. Player gray walk 1. Boom. Player gray walk 2. Cool. Interesting. Interesting. This is just vector graphics. We could do pixel graphics. Anyway, let's go. So the player images are a bit too large for the game window, so we need to scale them down. Okay. Oh, yeah. Too big. All right. We're going to click on the Animated Sprite 2D node and set the scale property to 0.5, 0.5, and we can find that in the inspector under the Node 2D heading. So it's going to be under Node 2D in this scale right here. So let's go over there. And this is selected, and over here, Node 2D transform. Let's do, does it say transform right here? Transform, yeah, transform right there. Transform, and then we'll go 0.5, 0.5. This is already linked up. This thing on toggled is linked, and then when it has the break in it, it's not linked. So this is linked, so we can just press 0.5 on one of them, 0.5 like that, press enter, and it does it for both, and we can see this thing is scaled down. All right, let's go to the next one. Finally, we're going to add a collision shape 2D as a child of player, and this will determine the player's hitbox or the bounds of its collision area. Okay. For this character, a capsule 2D node gives off actually, let's do the collision shape thing. So let's come over here and let's add the collision shape by selecting player, doing a Control A, and say collision shape 2D right there. Enter. All right, so we've got this, and now let's do the next part. So this will determine that, okay, for this character, a capsule shape 2D node gives the best fit. So next to shape in the inspector, we're going to give the empty, we're going to click empty and turn it to new capsule shape 2D. And then using this anyway, let's do this first. So we're going to come over here to this thing, do the shape thing, and we'll turn the shape to, no, was that it? Yeah. New capsule shape 2D. Boom. All right, so that's there. And what's the next part? It says using the two size handles, we're going to resize the shape to cover the sprite. All right, so these two right here, 1, 2. Let's go do that over here. Bring this to the middle, and let's zoom in. You can use your mouse wheel, but I can't. Let's move this over. All right. Right to the outside of this thing, and let's move this thing down, covering the feet just a little bit, and let's move this over 1. All right, that seems pretty tight. It doesn't get the littlest part over here, but whatever, it's good enough for now. Like if we really wanted to tighten it up, we'd make 1 here, and then we'd make 1 for this leg and 1 for this leg. It would be pretty much exact, but we'll deal with that at some other point. Anyway, let's go back over here. So we did that, and when we're finished, our player scene should look like this. So the scene should look like this over there in the scene holder, whatever we call it. This thing right here, player animated sprite collision shape 2D. So it looks good. Let's come back over here. So once this is done, the warning on the Area2D node will disappear as it now has a shape assigned and can interact with other objects. So yes, the warning's gone now. Let's come back over here. We're going to make sure to save the scene again after these changes, and then in the next part, we're going to add a script to the player node and move it and animate it. Then we'll set up the collision detection to know when the player got hit by something. All right. So let's come over here and let's save it with a Control S. Let's come back over here. That should be the end of that. If you got some, if you want to go look through the notes, we got them right there. It looks a little outdated though, because we got through it just fine. So there's that. So let's go to the next one, and now we're on to coding the player base. And pardon me, what did I say? Now we're on to coding the player, and we'll see you next time.